It's early. Thanks for joining us today. As we get started, we're going to ask folks to put where you're joining us from in the chat and maybe one thing that you are curious about when you signed up. What made you sign up? So feel free to tell us where you're dialing in from and one thing you're curious to learn more about today. I'll start. I'm in New York. I'll put that in the chat. I'll make sure I'm not sending that just to you, Kalina.
Yeah, I'll add in I am in the rainy, stormy Bay Area, Oakland, California.
Is it
Who would
raining?
who would have known the weather could be like this in California?
Well, Northern Cali.
Right?
Love the Southern California weather for sure, though. It's always perfect. Indianapolis, and I'm always here to learn about customer insights.
Yay.
We are too. That is our jam. We're so excited to share more today with you all. So we're going to give folks another 2 minutes to hop on before we get started. And again, if you just joined, feel free to tell us where you're joining us from and what you're interested in learning more about. Cambridge, Massachusetts, welcome. Always curious about how others are leveraging AI to work smarter and get better outcomes. Yeah, AI is a topic du jour right now. So we've got East Coast and, well, Kalina, you're representing the West Coast.
Yes, yes, yes. It's still morning time for us. We still got 30 minutes before it's afternoon.
That's right. All right, we're gonna give it one more minute and then we're gonna kick things off. We are recording this as well too, so I know we had a bunch of folks sign up, which was really exciting to see,
Well,
and we'll
hello
get
from
to
France.
share. Oh, France, international. So it is 7:30 or 8:30 your time, I think. I've got a team out in London, so I spend a lot of time with them. So I know France is 1 hour ahead of that too. So welcome. Thanks for, yes, 8:30. Thanks
Ça
for dialing in.
ça va, Jenny?
Okay, so we want to keep on time. Kalina, I'm going to open up the waiting room so that folks can hop in while we get started.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for spending some time with us this afternoon, evening, morning. We're across time zones. We're so excited to be speaking and sharing with you all today. Just a bit of housekeeping before we dive in. So first thing, we want to save Q&A at the end of the session. So we hope that as Kalina and I are presenting, that you may have thoughts, you may have questions. Feel free to put some of the commentary you have or thoughts you have in the chat. We want it to feel a little bit interactive that way as well. But we'll save answering any questions that you might have of us to the end. We'll definitely leave room for that. So with that, we're going to kick things off. Starting with what we're going to cover today. So, we want to really ground ourselves in why we're here and what we're hoping to get out of today's session. So, we designed this lightning lesson to be a precursor to a course that we're actually building right now on customer-led growth. So, if that is a term or a concept that's new to you, don't worry. We are going to dig into it because we think that it is critical, especially for software as a service businesses and businesses in general. If you're not serving your customers and learning from them and growing your business through them, then what are you in business for? So we'll dig into the concept as it relates to SaaS in a few minutes. But we want you to walk away with three things. First, we want to make the case that AI is bringing value, no doubt, but it's also causing a lot of noise. So we want to help you start to differentiate what we're calling customer signal from customer noise. The second thing is the intent of this lesson actually is not to dig into AI and how you can use it for go-to-market. Our broader course will touch on specific AI use cases, but we wanted to start with the foundational skills that we think are now more important than ever in terms of operationalizing customer-led growth. And then finally, we want to bring the concepts to life for you. So Kalina and I are going to share some real world examples that we've been using in our career to really drive retention and growth for the businesses that we've supported. And so, as I stated at the beginning, we'll definitely leave some time for Q&A at the end of the session. So before we dive in, we thought it might be helpful for you to get a little bit of background on who we are. So Kalina, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you so much for that. So, hi everyone, I'm Kalina. I have been in the tech industry for about 12 years now, spanning from companies such as Asana, Anaplan, Talkdesk, Signify, and most recently Mixpanel. I focus in on customer-led growth through a marketing lens, driving pipeline for both new business, net new business, and expansion. I'm also an executive in residence at First Round Capital, advising early stage startups. And on my spare time, I'm a community curator, bringing diverse individuals together in the tech industry, figuring out ways to thrive. Along with that, I have an ongoing podcast by the name of Unapologetic Tech that's inspiring individuals that are looking to find success, ground themselves, build confidence. I'm excited to be here today, excited to share with you guys all of the key learnings that me and Ejime have acquired over the course of this decade plus in the industry, and hoping that we can have a knowledge exchange moment. Everything that we've learned, we're here to share that with the world and obviously make sure that everyone is successful in the land of AI in this new era. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Ejime. Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Thank you. So I was talking, but I hadn't formally introduced myself. So thanks so much again for joining us. So my name is Ejime Aramaselli. I've spent my career at the intersection of delivering customer experience and tying that delivery to customer revenue and company growth. The through line that's really kind of supported my career is that any company's long-term sustainable business model needs to stem from a deep understanding and ability to deliver value to your customers. That started early on in a career in management consulting. I worked at Accenture and PwC, literally building call centers across the world. And then I ran customer experience at the New York Times for several years. In the past 10 years or so, I have been focused on software as a service businesses in the functions of customer success and account management. I've also built international teams as GM of EMEA. I'm really passionate about the people side of things. And last year, I co-authored the Customer Success Talent Playbook. That's the book that I'm holding in that picture there, with several other women in customer success. And finally, when I'm not doing all of that, I also run a community for Black professionals in customer success called Success in Black. And I will drop those links on where you can find me when we dig in. Okay, speaking of digging in, let's get started. So, our primary hypothesis is that, AI is great. It's eating the world. It's helping us be more efficient. However, we think that more data actually is not helping us get better decisions. And the context that we'll be talking about today is a software as a service business. So, a business that sells you a piece of software, you continue to use it, you hopefully renew and continue to use it, and then you hopefully expand and buy more different products and features from that provider. So, one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing in go-to-market teams, and we define go-to-market as sales, marketing, and customer success teams, is that a lack of data is actually quite the opposite. We're seeing that as we have more access to more data and more information, more feedback from customers, more usage data, more dashboards, we feel that the decisions are actually getting more clouded and a bit slower. And so, for the things that we really look at in SaaS businesses, the impact metrics of gross revenue retention and net revenue retention, they're actually either flat or declining in the past few years. And you would think the opposite was happening. So, you would think that with more data, we would actually be seeing better company outcomes. But through 2021 through 2024, SaaS net revenue retention actually declined by upwards of 10% as a whole from pre-pandemic highs. And we're seeing gross revenue retention actually flatlining. So what's really happening? I mean, I think we've been taught that, again, more data means better outcomes, but we think that that assumption is really starting to break down. We're also seeing that as executives have more access and more volumes of data, decisions get more complicated. I like to eat cereal sometimes. I know it's sugary and sweet. It's like walking through the cereal aisle. If there's only 10 options, you can probably make a decision pretty quickly. But if you've got hundreds of different options, it's a paradox of choice. And we think that this new AI era we're in is actually creating that in terms of the business context. So we don't want to use AI to do more necessarily. I think we should really be thinking about using AI to do better. And if you go to the next slide, Kalina, we're seeing this kind of like take form in terms of a few different false signals that we're seeing. So we're seeing that, again, tons of data on demand, and we think that demand means that a company or a customer or prospect has intent. We see that a ton of usage doesn't necessarily equal value for our customers. I happen to work in a usage-based company just because, they're using the product. How we actually help them quantify value, there's a question mark there. We think that customer sentiment means that we've totally understood what the customer is asking for or looking for. And we think that AI output is actually going to give us a sense of true understanding. But these things we think can oftentimes actually be distracting. And why is that? So on the next slide, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a former management consultant, so I love a good two by two. But we thought that this was a good framing of some of what we're seeing and the counterbalance of when you have a lot of signal, and signal are things like activity, usage, data, and insights. It can sometimes be noisy. So you have to juxtapose that with the business impact because, again, we're as professionals trying to create business impact for our companies, but also for our customers. And so ideally, we want to not only optimize signal strength. So on that y-axis, you see low signal and high signal. We also want to optimize that against the x-axis, which has business impact. And so when we think about something like the most dangerous quadrant, so that bottom right quadrant, you have high signal, but you have low impact. A good example of this is, and I've actually gone through this very recently with one of my customers. You have very high positive sentiment from your admins. They show up on all of your calls. Your day-to-day prospects, think that everything's going great. But the actual budget owner and the P&L owner churned. They canceled. They said that they weren't seeing enough ROI, right? So that was a false signal for us in thinking that we had the renewal locked down. And on the other side, when you think of what's hidden value, so that top left quadrant, low signal, high impact, this is where there's still something to be uncovered. I also have these conversations with some of my customers too, where, there's a use case that they think that there's value there, but we can't fully articulate it yet, and and let's say we can't fully quantify it yet. But ideally, we want to be in that top right quadrant, right? We want to be in the high signal, high impact area. So this is a behavior that truly predicts recurring revenue, it predicts retention, and it predicts expansion. And honestly, we don't want to be in that bottom left corner, right? Low signal, low impact. It's just noise. We don't want to spend any time there. So this is really what the signal framework that we developed is. And Kalina's going to get into that in a moment. But signal really is about how do we recognize the things that truly drive value for our customer and business impact. And we want to think about that as a skill. So it's not about tools. AI, again, great tools. We're going to talk about that in our course, but we really want to double down on the core skills that actually can supercharge any AI that we put in place. So, Kalina, I hand it off to you.
Yeah, so this is exciting. So when we took a step back, we asked ourselves, what are we trying to achieve? And Ejime mentioned her quadrant, and we definitely want to make sure that we're silencing the noise. So I've had the opportunity to be in two different worlds, the marketing world and the customer success world. And ultimately, we're driving towards the same goal is engaging our customers, making sure that we're providing value, and also ensuring that they don't churn and that we provide the best material possible to also see them grow with us long term, but more importantly, expand in different opportunities within our product. So looking at the whole data, if we take a step back, companies that reach about 120% in NRR design real customer signal. How do we get that? When you look at this, we have 6 components: sense customer truths, integrate context, generate value paths, nurture trust at scale, activate customers as growth engines, and loop back to product. That is a lot, right? But technically, it's multiple departments that's touching each one of these frameworks. So if you're thinking about the sense of customer truth, on a marketing end, we're pulling in customer testimonials. We're doing G2 references and recommendations. We're also putting that feedback and bringing it and integrating it into all of our contacts. So whether that's product marketing, the TEI reports that you're seeing generated, the quadrants, the Forrester reviews, all of that information is getting tied back in. And ultimately, if we're doing our jobs right and we're pushing out the right content with the voice of the customer, we're generating paths of success for then our customer success organization to be able to nurture our customers, pinpoint where there's problems, and also celebrate some of those happy customers and showcase why they're happy with our customers. But then once we're getting that information, our goal is to always turn our customers into advocates. When we're doing those 3 components there, the sense of customer truth, the integrating context, and generating value paths, we then can actually nurture towards trust. And those are some of the fun programs like the Customer Advisory Board, which we'll get into, the advocacy programs, whether that's doing roundtables or customer dinners. But you want to make sure that you're putting the right people in the right room at the right time. But how do you know that? How do you know a customer is happy? How do you know that they actually want to give you 2 to 3 hours after their long workday on a Wednesday? Well, we know that based on some of the content that we're getting. We know that from the customer truth. We know that from the context of someone raising their hand saying, I will actually give a solid reference because I believe in the product. That value path allows us to trigger why we should continue that engagement with the customer advocacy side of things. And then if we take a step further, activating the customer as growth engines. Now, when we identify and we're building this trust and they're engaging with us, whether it's a testimonial or presenting at our user conference or coming in to do a guest speaking opportunity with us, a fireside chat, we now have an opportunity to see where else can we go with you. By the time you're having those engagements, whether that's a quarterly review or a one-on-one coffee chat, they're actually showcasing to you the success of why they're choosing your product, but more importantly, they feel the trust to tell you if something's going wrong. So if there's a bug that needs to be worked out, if there's something that, they want to showcase that our competitors is pitching to them and they actually are committed to being in a relationship and a partnership with you, they will ask you, can you build this for me? Can we take a step back and do a pilot here? Can we actually do beta testing in this area of concern? And when we do that, you're activating that growth engine because number one, you're not in a risk of churning that account because they feel safe enough to tell you where the problems are. And two, they're open to you introducing additional products, which is when we get to that upsell and expansion component. And when we think about the overall picture of customer-led growth, if you have that satisfaction with your customers and you have the trust, you are more confident to showcase that your bottom line, your customer is going to be not only staying with you for that year, but you can commit to see that they will be long-term customers years to come. And then lastly, looping all that content, all of that feedback, all of that customer feedback into the product. We are only as good as our product, but how do we get great at our product? Through the voice of our customer. So every time we're engaging, whether that's the advisory board or references or surveys or one-on-ones when you're doing the renewals, they're showcasing what needs to be fixed, but also what is actually already working for them that they do not want change. This impacts the product roadmap. It impacts how we package our pricing. It impacts how we lead from a product-led growth perspective. So when you think about the whole layout of Signal, if we are to do this framework properly and touch each one of these components, you're not only satisfying the customer, but you're also putting the company at a good stance to continue that growth, to be confident that they're going to hit that 120% NRR, to be confident that they can actually penetrate the key accounts at the right time to see that full wall-to-wall deployment. So looking at this, before we go to the next slide, always remember, Is there a sense of customer truth? Are we integrating all of that in context? Are we generating value paths? Are we nurturing trust at scale? Are you activating these customers as growth engines? And are you looping back to the product? If that's all a yes, then that means that you're also in a good relationship with all of the key go-to market departments, whether that's marketing, sales, product, customer success. That means that you guys are all working together, which ultimately puts the company at a good stance to know that their trajectories are going to be quite promising. And how do we actually get that signal framework? So, why is customer led growth important? Why does it matter? In order for us to do a successful framework, we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what is customer led growth? Here is go to market strategy where customers, outcomes, power, and acquisition, expansion, and retention all come together. So when we think about customer led growth, I'm more on the advocacy end. Ejime is more on the expansion end, but we're all together on the outcome side of things. When we're thinking about customer-led growth, we're asking ourselves from a go-to-market perspective, are we hitting the right numbers? Are we engaging at the right time to ensure acquisition is taking place, expansion is promising, and more importantly, retention is going to take place? If you ask yourself this, whether you're a customer success leader, a go-to market leader, or up and coming marketer, you want to be able to confidently say, am I driving outcomes with my programs? If you're a practitioner, from an advocacy perspective, you want to ask yourself, are the programs generating the right advocates? And when I say advocates, I mean our customers. And also from a customer success leadership perspective, you want to know, am I touching the right account and the right individual at the right time to ultimately lead you to that expansion? And this is where it gets tricky because we all are going to hold a revenue number at some point. And as a marketer, if you're asking yourself, well, what do I hold? Is it generating pipeline? Is it generating pipeline from a net new retention perspective? Or is it expansion and upsell? It can be all of them. I personally myself own both. I own expansion, upsell, and also a hefty pipeline net new business metric. But I am very intentional of how I approach every activation. I'm always looking at it from a customer led growth lens. Any campaign that we're running, whether it's a campaign for e-commerce, whether it's defining the right ICP, or whether that's creating a new program that's going to get us to scale, whether it be showcasing different things on the website or doing a big event. I'm always looking at what would the customer need to be successful, which is ultimately our customer-led growth layout. Now, in order to really adapt this customer-led growth and this signal methodology and framework, me and Ejime have really thought about the customer outcome flywheel. I love Edumate's brain because she's really engaged on her images. She's like, Kalina, we need a flywheel. I said, well, okay, if we do a flywheel, what does it mean? We need to be able to articulate it and actually understand, like, what are we pitching? So when I look at this flywheel, it's a customized 5 stages, right? So I'm looking at discovering. We want to discover how our customers are finding the proof of value within our product. We then want them to adopt. We want them to accelerate. We just don't want them to be a 1 year client. We want them to be a long-term client. We also want to make sure everything that we're doing with our customer ties back into a measurable result because our company at the bottom line wants to see strategy and growth, and they love solid, sexy numbers, 1, 2, and 3 metrics to show. And then we want to get to the amplification piece of it. Everything that we're doing, when a customer is discovering us, when they're adopting and when they're achieving with us, they want to be able to amplify us just as much. So we want to ensure as a customer, are we providing you value and how can we articulate that for you? So a lot of the times on the marketing end, we have customer awards. We have activations where they can do a customer testimonial for us or they could do case studies for us. It's not just the value of what they're doing with that story for us, but it's also a value for them to be branded in a positive way. A lot of the times from a product perspective, if we're doing our jobs right, and as a customer, if we're able to brand them in a positive light, we're helping them get promotions. We're helping them get the right attention in front of their leaders. We're also helping them showcase tangible numbers that they can show their upper management. And then lastly, when we're able to help them achieve, they then want to amplify with us. They want to also showcase how they have achieved, but more importantly, they're bringing in references. They're bringing in individuals that they recommend to also buy the product. And when we're all doing those five stages, we actually win. The customer wins because they're branded properly. They're set up for success with the tool. They're able to show the right metrics with their leadership. And on our end, we're able to drive new business with the recommendations and the referrals that they're willing to give because we have showed them value. And more importantly, we're able to see long-term revenue and retention because they vouch for us. They have a commitment to stay with us long term, and they have opportunities to buy additional products because of the value that we've shown. I'm gonna take a little water. I didn't, I knew our slides were back to back, but it just need a little water. Now, I've showed you our signal layout, and I've also showed you our five stages. I want to go into detail as to how do we develop this? This is a blueprint out of my playbook during my time at Asana, pre-IPO to post-IPO. I was focused in on creating customer advocacy strategies across the entire globe. And what I found worked well is generating pipeline through our customer base. And so I'm happy to share this in more detail. I have an article on it, but this pyramid showcases how we have defined our key champions. And it also has shown how do we engage with them, how do we provide a certain amount of treatment to them at an executive layer, and how do we amplify. When I was joining Asana, I was tasked to penetrate the top 100 accounts that they currently already were in place, the biggest accounts. And the goal was make sure that they retain for us, Kalina, but secondly, make sure that we can go wall to wall within that account. A lot of the times we were at a small piece. So let's say we were at a big company like Google. They were using us in marketing, but we found that if we showed value within multiple organizations, our departments within Google, we'd be able to fully expand. We'd be able to have upsell opportunities, expansion opportunities. But how do you do that for such a large organization, right? So with this framework, I took a step back to look at level one, which is finding your champions. I have a whole training on this, but every time you're looking at your customer base, you want to understand who are you talking to. There's three tiers. You have the end user, and then you have the middle person that's usually like the director, the person that's really advocating inside the product for you, loves it. And then you have that executive decision maker. That's the individual that holds the budget, that really is going to sign off on that product. In order to understand how to activate them, you have to define who you're talking to. So finding that champion is a full project. You're in spreadsheets basically outlining what's the target accounts, but then you're also looking at who are you going after from that tier one. Maybe it's an analyst, tier two, director, tier three, maybe it's the VP or the chief whatever officer. Once you define that, you're then going to understand, well, what type of communities am I going to plug them into in order for them to engage with me long term? The things that you're going to do with a tier one analyst versus a tier three VP are drastically different. A vice president might be going to a curated roundtable. They might be going to a private suite at a Warriors game. They may be participating in your customer advisory board because their value is what other networks can you bring to them to engage and basically offer them things that they can't get anywhere else. When you think about your tier ones, they're analysts that geek out on bigger communities, being able to attend big trade shows, being able to do user groups, learn for the product. They're in it, right? They want to be engaged with like-minded individuals that's going to actually show them how to be better at the product. So defining how your communities are going to activate those users are super crucial. Then once you get to that, you're looking at level three. Everyone wants to have some type of level of VIP treatment, and it can't be, I would say, reactional. It has to be very thoughtful. So you might be doing a retreat for all of the C levels that you put in that tier one. You might be taking them to Napa for 2 or 3 days to brainstorm and help them build a go-to market strategy that's going to help them achieve their goals for the next year. You may be inviting your end users to come to a hackathon and really geek out on the product and like-minded individuals. But these layers are helping you, number one, generate that advocacy because every time they engage with you, they're talking about the product, they're talking about how they feel every time they're touching your brand, your experiences. And then lastly, once they see all these experiences, you get to level four where it's the executive level, where the targeted audiences understand that you're not just offering a product, you're offering us educational resources, and more importantly, you're offering us a brand that we want to be associated with. Once you gain that trust, amplification comes. Amplification comes not just by that department that uses the product, but now they're talking about it within other departments as well, allowing other individuals to adapt to the new product, to expand, to take an opportunity to buy additional products from you, which from a bottom line perspective, on an advocacy side, we're driving that expansion pipeline. We're showcasing that these individuals are committed to wall-to-wall deployment. So now you're looking at your bottom line numbers of this account may have been worth 2 million. Now it's now worth 5 million. These are just numbers thrown out there, but you're really thinking about how are you driving pipeline for the expansion. And then also every single customer that is now geeking out with you that wants to amplify you. These are credible individuals that are now willing to bring in new customers. They're willing to bring in new prospects. So now you have a net new business hat. You have individuals that are willing to bring in at user groups, at conferences, whatever it might be, reference calls. So now you have two hats that all stream from advocacy. You're able to have a pipeline hat where you're generating net new business. And more importantly, you're able to have an expansion pipeline hat where you're committed to knowing that someone is going to expand because of the experiences and networking and knowledge exchange that you're providing from them from an advocacy perspective. Again, there's a whole training on this. If you want to learn more, have questions, I'm happy to answer. But Ejime, I think it goes off to you now.
Yep, thanks, Kalina. So, again, to recap in this section, we're just walking through some case studies that align to our signal framework. So, I will share an example on the G part of signal, which is generate value paths for your customers. Because, again, that's the precursor to customer-led growth and to growing with them as well. So, this is a tool that I did not invent or create, but I've used and I think simplified for what my team oftentimes has to do. So I run customer success and account management teams. So we often are in, hopefully, value conversations. I won't get into the QBR is dead debate here. You can go search that on LinkedIn if you have any thoughts or feelings about QBRs and why they may or may not be dead. But I think even the fact that we're debating that highlights the need of something like this, right? So our customers are busy. They have other things going on. We are usually just one of a laundry list of vendors and solution providers that they have to deal with in addition to their day job, right? So every touch point that we have, how do we restructure that touch point to be more value added? Whether it's a QBR, whether it's actually a recap email, whether it's other touch points that we have with them. So I coach my team to use this simple framework to make sure that we're focused on the most valuable and actionable things for our customers. So we cut through the noise. So the first aspect of the what, so now what framework is what. So this is really about the facts and figures I like to think about that ground the conversation. So what has actually happened since our last conversation and our last review? What are we seeing in terms of trends in your adoption, in your usage, and ideally in the outcomes that we set out to achieve together? The goal here is clarity and not just data, but the few indicators that you can point to that really matter to your customer and their goals. The next is the so what. So I think my folks on my team sometimes think I bully them sometimes because they come to me with the draft and I'm like, so what? Why should I care? Like, what does this actually tell me? Is this in the greater context of my business? Is this in the greater context of the macro economic environment, why should I care is a so what? And I think this is oftentimes one of the most important parts of the conversations that we have with our customers. So we translate the what into business impact and into business context. So again, what does this mean for your customers' objectives? Why should they care? And I like also the framing of why should they care now? Maybe this was just sort of business as usual, but maybe something has changed for them. So this is why now what we're talking about, the data point that we're highlighting, has to be a greater priority for them. So are we accelerating value? Are we seeing potential risk? Or are we uncovering new opportunities for them? The so what is so critical, and it's where we actually connect activity to outcomes that matter for our customers. And then finally, now what? So this often I think is missing from our conversations is, okay, you've told me all this great stuff, you've put it in context, and then we're like, well, thank you, Mr. Customer. We'll see you next week. But now what? What am I supposed to do with this? Again, we're talking to busy executives and they have a lot going on. So, as much as we can simplify and offer our recommendation of this is what we think you should do first, second, and third. Here's the crawl, walk, run approach that now you should move forward with. Or honestly, this is just the one thing you need to do tomorrow, right? How do we simplify the complexity for their world and frame it in an actionable next step for them? And this is where the conversation becomes more forward-looking and actionable as opposed to just a back-looking recap of their metrics. So, given what we've seen, what should we be doing next together? Like, this is actually one of the sentences I love talking about because it frames the conversation of what we're doing together next, not only what we need to do and not only what maybe our customers need to do. Where should we lean in more? Where should we adjust? Or where should we, think about expanding more to drive even greater impact? So, the now what really takes the data you've gathered in the what, those facts and figures, the greater context of their business or the market or other things that are impacting them and putting it in an actionable next step for them. So using the structure helps keep our QBRs and our other executive touch points more focused and value and not just reporting. If you want to use just reporting, you can send them an email with the report. And even that, I would say, you should at least try to put in context of the so what and now what, or it's just going to be another email in their inbox. So it really helps us clearly show progress, align on the most critical priorities, and leave every review with a shared, actionable plan for the future. So I'll ask you today, like, how can you use something like this and maybe an update to a customer email, or if you are preparing for a business review, and how are you actually getting to the so what and the now what? Back to you, Kalina.
Thank you. Um, And another example on my end is looping back to product. As we mentioned in the framework, this is one of the most critical sides of the framework. Um, we are currently looking at a PLG motion, right? So driving growth through customer advisory boards at scale really helps that motion. We're really looking at the voice of the customer at every intersection. I share this as one of my prime examples because at every organization that I've been at, in B2B SaaS, whether it's Anaplan, TalkDesk, Asana, Signified, Mixpanel, I've always been tasked to create this customer advisory board. And originally, when I was running it, back in 2014, I didn't know how valuable it was. I just thought I was just putting people together, right? But I realized that this was the really intersection between what customers are looking for and how we stand long term from a product perspective. The individuals on the advisory board, they're giving time to really showcase how they want to see our product because they value it, but also they're committed to seeing it actually scale. And so, for those of you listening, if you're ever thinking about how do I show value at all stages of an organization, if you have an opportunity, try to develop a customer advisory board. And different ways, right? Everyone has at most organizations an advisory board. The larger the organizations, you can see verticalized customer advisory boards. You can see multiple advisory boards in terms of leadership to end users. But I would say it allows our product teams to be more efficient and successful. We want to ensure that everyone that's on that customer advisory board, when they share value and share their feedback, it's our duty to actually make sure that their feedback is implemented and they can actually showcase that their feedback was received and actually driven with action. And I think that long term, when you're trying to scale in an AI generated era, your product is just as valuable as the feedback that you're getting from your customers. Without the feedback of the customers, you don't actually know if you have the most groundbreaking product on the market. So, looking at customer advisory boards, whether it's a small tech company or a large tech company, this is an opportunity for you to integrate the product. It's an opportunity for you to integrate the customer feedback, and also it's an opportunity to understand from a company perspective, are we going in the right direction? Can we see that there's trust within our customers? Do they believe in our product? And long term, our product roadmap, do we have a sticky roadmap? Do we have things that are going to be epic for our customers to continue to succeed with us? So I use that as a prime example because in an AI era, it's not going to change. And the one thing that we see value in is the voice of the customer. The ways to leverage AI now is to how do you pull the right benchmarks? How do you make sure that the experience is still sticky for that customer advisory board member? And how do we quickly give that feedback and actually put it and embed it in our product is some of the biggest things that I've been seeing right now over the course of the last 10 years with advisory boards. They're more crucial and needed than ever. And with that, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Helena. I was just responding to James's question there, which I thought was a really good one. I just tried to like quickly type in there. I already know your slides, so I wasn't listening to you talk. I was responding to James. And yeah, like I mentioned, we can dig into more Q&A. We'll definitely leave about 10 minutes or so for that. But yeah, I wanted to highlight another example. You'll hear a lot. I don't know if you've heard the theme already, but like advocacy is the holy grail. When I went over to London to open our international office as GM of EMEA, we didn't have any pipeline really. We didn't have a team on the ground. We didn't even have a business entity there. It was just me and two suitcases. And what we did have, though, thankfully, were a few customers of some well-known brands. Nespresso, Panasonic, Volvo, Tiffany and Co. were all our customers. And most of them were seeing some indications of success with us. And so that's where I focus my time is we're in a new market. We have no brand awareness. Nobody knows what our company is or really does. My goal was to unlock that opportunity. And the best way I thought that I could do that was with our customers first. And so, reached out to them, dug into their use cases. Thankfully, I was running global customer success, so I was already well familiar with their use cases and the work that they were doing with us. Some of the customers like Panasonic, who is actually featured here on the slide, were very early in their journey with us and hadn't fully operationalized, but they were actually going back to my 2x2 metric. They were in that top left quadrant, which was they were seeing early signs, but we couldn't actually pin it down. So we did a bit more digging with them to say, what is the one use case that would actually be relevant to this market? And so the market was Europe. And so my current company, Quick, we do messaging and AI. And so we said, you know what? You're seeing some early success on WhatsApp that's actually way more relevant to the European market than the US market. The rest of the world really uses WhatsApp. Americans don't that much. And so he said, because you're actually seeing a much higher CSAT on WhatsApp, maybe that's the thread that we can pull through to get people excited to hear more about your journey with Quick, right? They were very early, but that was the one impact that we said, other customers or other prospects then that look like you would really be interested in learning more about how you did this. And so the two pictures that you see here, Eugen's my customer at Panasonic. He was very excited to share that story and did it twice actually. So he did it in a keynote speech at one of the conferences that we were sponsoring, which is the slide there, the picture there on the left. And then he did it again. We actually held a workshop, and one of his colleagues joined us. And because he was so excited to share that story, so many of his broader colleagues in the customer experience space were congratulating him. They were like, wow, we've been thinking about WhatsApp for years. How'd you actually do it? Like, how'd you measure success? Like, how did you get executive buy-in? He became a thought leader. And so he wanted to do it again. And that for me was the real unlock is how do you activate your customers as growth engines? I think oftentimes we see ourselves as solution providers as we have all the answers. Like we know everything there is about the space. I like to really call that out a bit, that we should be more humble. We know all there is about our product and our platform, but in terms of the function that we're selling, the outcomes that we're trying to drive, who knows that best but our customers? They live in this day in and day out. And I like to say that our customers are our best sales team, right? Once you can position them as the experts and get them seeing value on your product, they will sell better than any salesperson at your company. And so, how do we give them that platform? How do we really activate them as growth engines? Kalina, shared her advocacy framework, which is amazing. I, at that time, was beg, borrowing, and stealing. And it was easy for me to do that. I actually ended up with 100% customer advocacy. That means all of our customers in Europe were advocating for us in some way, whether that was speaking on stages, whether that was speaking in terms of reference calls and customer testimonials. Also, we did a bunch of dinners where we got executives together. They were always my first phone call to, can you just show up and, share how you're thinking about the space? And every customer I asked said yes. And why was that? Because they were already seeing value, right? And so this is something that I want us more to tap into is how do we activate our existing customers as those growth engines? I was challenged because, it was a new market for us, new environment, and, we got 100% customer advocacy. The other metric that I left London with was 129% net revenue retention. So those customers not only advocated for us, they actually grew in terms of expansion for us, which that's the name of the game. We all know that NRR is the true metric of success in terms of SaaS and go-to-market. So that is the last use case that we'll share. Kalina, I think you're going to wrap up with some of the metrics that we think people should really focus on to go from good to great.
Yes, definitely. So as you may mention, we love that net revenue retention number. So looking at this, these are the three areas that you want to focus on. So 120% plus net revenue retention. This is going to be epic when you're thinking about anything engaged with your customers, whether it's logo acquisition, whether it's expansion. This is a number that's sticky. It's a number that executives care about. It's a number that's going to continually allow you to scale within your role, whether that's being a practitioner or being a leader within the function. Secondly, 20 to 30% faster sales cycle. So when done right, as mentioned before on the advocacy side of things, and also putting the marketing hat in, you do better deals when you have a customer that's willing to get on a phone call and actually advocate and showcase why they chose the product. It's the best sales opportunity I think you can have here. Over the course of 10 years, this is always sticky. It's faster cycles when you're able to get that key customer on the call that can relate to their pains, their needs, and actually can showcase the success that they've received within your product is crucial. And then also 20 to 30% reduced acquisition. So when you're thinking about how you're saving on your customer, it's a lot. It's more expensive to acquire a new account than it is to actually keep a happy customer, and you lose more when you can't retain that customer. So looking at that reduction is so critical when you are developing the right customer-led growth strategy. Our main goal is to always make sure that we're driving satisfaction within our customer base. Number one, to of course expand and have upsell within our customers, but more importantly, to know that we're confident that they're going to retain with us. So looking at those three hats, if you're ever wondering, how do I show value in my work? How do I know that I deserve a seat at the table? How do I know that I'm going to be safe within my role? Make sure that you're aligning these three components here, these three metrics. If all three, fantastic, golden, right? If you only have one, still golden. These are numbers that are driving the needle, not just for your organization or not just for your department, but more importantly for the organization as a whole. And next slide, I'll have you recap, Benjamin.
Yeah, great questions, James. I'm going to hit the NRR versus ARR one at the end here, but quick recap. So we're nearing the end. Again, thanks so much for hanging on with us and joining our lightning lesson today. So hopefully by now you can do a few things. Have a bit more clarity in terms of why more data doesn't necessarily mean better outcomes. As I mentioned, the company I'm currently with, we sell AI to enterprise. So I talk about AI every day. So like AI use cases, what's valuable, what's not, what's just vaporware. I'm living this day in and day out. And I will tell you that a lot of the use cases that we're seeing, you talk about AI making you more efficient, right? So you can get a process done faster. But a lot of what's missing from the conversation isn't making us more effective, right? Same with customer success. Just because your CSMs used to be able to handle 20 accounts per CSM, now they can handle 40 accounts per CSM. Has your retention rate gone up? Has NRR gone up? Right? We need to be thinking about that. So more data does not equal better outcomes. The second is, we've shared with you our signal framework. There's those six dimensions of it, and we like to really think about that as doubling down on the true skills that need to help you focus on how to drive customer-led growth. Kalina laid out what customer-led growth means, and so hopefully you have that foundation now as well. And then lastly, we went back and forth sharing some real-world examples of how we've been able to operationalize those skills in our day-to-day. So through customer advocacy, and through being able to really understand the value that we're generating and articulate that more clearly in the what, so what, and now what framework as well. So hopefully you have a better understanding of this. And yeah, I would love to pitch our course, which is still in development. But when you signed up for the lightning lesson, you signed up and we have your email. So when it is actually launched, you will be hearing from us. You will hear more about it. And again, in the course, we will dive into more AI use cases. I know everyone's hungry for that, so we definitely will have that. We will also be sharing more in-depth examples and practical applications of the signal framework in context with AI. So, yeah, hopefully you all will join us for that as well.
Great. I think it's time to open it up for some questions.
Yeah, so I think you all can come off mute too. You should be able to. James, I know you asked that first question of how do you manage customer needs around AI products. Hopefully my answer was sufficient. I saw you said thanks. Hopefully it was helpful.
It was. No, thank you for that. Mainly, I was interested in, new accounts, right, where AI is all the hype,
Mhm.
and every next customer that my business tries to do a sales cycle with, the first thing they ask is, what do you guys have to offer in the space of AI solutions and whatnot? And sometimes we ask similar follow-up questions as you
Yeah.
enumerated so well here, which is, what is the real problem that you're having that you think this magical thing called AI will solve?
Right, right. And
And
then they find
they
out it's not magic.
right. And neither do they have the clarity, right? In the sense, okay, yes, AI, yes, but what really? And one, I
Mhm.
think they're not factoring the costs of putting in an AI function in.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, thanks for that
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, just to even double click on the cost aspect, right? Because oftentimes, they're focusing on, oh, what's the cost of your solution then? Or how many tokens am I going to run?
Yeah.
But the greater cost that we see with our customers, especially at the enterprise level, is the cost of the resources and the team. and the opportunity cost on investing in something else that might have better impact, but actually doesn't have AI included, right? So even a lot of what we talk about AI is just automation that existed for like 20 years. So I love that you're already, applying this kind of what are you trying to solve? What problem or what business objective are we really trying to unpick? And then we can figure out where AI can be applied.
Right. And the truth be told, the responses that we're getting mostly is cost reduction. And again, response from my side is okay. Have you validated that an AI solution will really give you the cost reduction that you think you're going to get, as opposed
Right.
to existing functions, existing SaaS based capabilities and whatnot. So there's no clarity right now. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Kalina, do you want to take the AR versus NR question?
Yeah, and then we also have, I'm going to answer the customer-led growth
Oh,
versus
yeah.
product-led because that one's actually top of mind right now. So you said which is better. I wouldn't say which is better. I think that you actually have to be in a motion where you can tap into both, right? So I'm at Mixpanel right now, and we're a product-led growth organization all the way from startup programs to enterprise, customers. And when we're thinking about our product, we're continuously packaging things up and trying to sell multiple suite style products. But I think that they need to work hand in hand, right? Because with the customer led growth motion, we're actually taking the real feedback from our customers, where we are able to allow them to share with us what they would bet on versus what is not, most needed right now, and also what needs to be worked on, especially in the upcoming quarters. And they're also allowing us to understand what their key focus points are in the physical year and what they would need from us in order to be seen as like a thought partner long term. And then when we think about product led growth, you're only as good as your product. So there's always going to be competition, and it comes like no tomorrow, right? Either there's someone that's better at marketing, or there's someone that actually does have a better product, or whatever it might be. It is our goal to always be top of mind with our product, being able to test how to put it out in market, but also how to actually showcase pricing too. That's a really competitive layout too. When we think about our competitors, we may have the better product, but also they might be very savvy on pricing and what they're able to discount. So we always have to be top of mind of how can we constantly compete? How can we be competitive? How do we bring our customers in at the right time to vouch for us? But more importantly, from a product led perspective, what can we package up? I would say as a suite versus what's going to be a single add-on. And also, we love having 3-year contracts, right? Or multi-year contracts, not just 1-year contracts. And when you're thinking about it from a product-led perspective, you're able to understand what can be discounted based on that long-term commitment. So I would say it's better to have both and better to have leaders thinking about both.
Yeah, I would echo that. Um, Great. And then there was another question from James on ARR versus NRR, which is better and why. And I put NRR for sure. I mean, in our, I mean, I guess to define it, ARR is annual recurring revenue. You could also, if you're more of a monthly recurring MR, also AR, MR is just a time frame in which that revenue recurs, but NR is net revenue retention. And so net revenue retention is sort of the holy grail in SaaS. AR is just a moment in time, right? It's just like, how much is this book of business spending with you, right? So if you've got 100 customers spending, $100 is 100K of ARR, but that's just a moment in time. NRR actually takes account of the way that revenue moves in and out of a business. So it incorporates renewals, churns, and contractions, but also expansions, upsells, and cross sells. So it truly reflects, is your product sticky and are your customers growing with your product? So it incorporates retention and expansion, which is why it's the holy grail. So like a business that has over 100% net revenue retention means that your business can continue to grow even if you don't even get a new customer, right? Because your existing customers are growing with you. So that's my metric now that I'm gold and compensated on, and it's the metric that I would say SaaS has really aligned on. I think a lot of businesses do still look at new logo, right? We, ring the gong when a new AE lands a new deal, and new logos and new customers are valuable, right? Because if it's a land and expand motion, you still need to land in order to expand. But if we think about capital efficient growth, and a lot of the VC and world in Silicon Valley has aligned on this, you really want to have high above 100% net revenue retention. So hopefully that answers. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, Kalina.
No, you're spot on.
Great. Were there any other questions? And thanks, Jenny, for your add-on to your experience. Appreciate that. Great. Well, if no other questions, yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to us and to hear more about our framework. We'd love any feedback on this. As we said, we're actively developing the course as we speak. So your feedback and your inputs will really help make it valuable for even more people. But
Love
yeah,
it.
thanks so much for spending time with us. Take care.
As you may, do you want to stay on for a few seconds?
Yeah. Oh, thank you.